Candace Owens says her war with Turning Point USA is about seeking justice for Charlie Kirk, but I don't think so. When it comes to TPUSA, I believe Candace is seeking justice for herself. I believe Candace has a personal vendetta with TPUSA that didn't start with Charlie's death. It began years ago. I spoke about Candace's conspiracy addiction previously, but that was just one aspect of her behavior since Charlie Kirk was murdered. This war with Turning Point USA is a whole different layer. To understand the current war Candace has with Turning Point USA, you have to go back to 2019. Before the Daily Wire, before she attacked Israel, before all the current conspiracies. Candace held a position with TPUSA as their communications director, where she worked closely with Charlie Kirk from 2017 to 2019. After making controversial remarks about Hitler at an event in London in 2019, several TPUSA university chapters called for her resignation. The university chapters put their concerns in writing, demanding that Candace step down. They made it clear they didn't want her as a representative for the organization. Candace was forced out of Turning Point USA. She put out a polished resignation statement, trying to make it sound bittersweet and something that made it look like she was looking forward to her next steps. But I don't think her statement reflected the pain she likely felt, feeling rejected and pushed out of Turning Point USA. Candace went from being a part of the organization to being an invited speaker, because she was invited back to speak on occasion at TPUSA events after resigning. But being a guest speaker isn't the same as being part of the organization and Charlie's close collaborator. Being ousted like that must have hurt. And when you're hurt like that, you don't get over it that quickly. And maybe for Candace, she never got over it. I believe the attack we're seeing today from Candace towards TPUSA is that old unhealed wound. To her, maybe that wound is just as fresh as it was back in 2019, but whether she's aware of it or not, I don't know. Practically from the moment Charlie was murdered, Candace went straight into combat mode against TPUSA. She decided that the actions of the Turning Point staff were suspicious. She made conspiratorial hints, financial insinuations. She even warned donors to stop giving and suggested they demand refunds. She turned normal actions of Turning Point USA into something sinister. Actions that no one would bat an eye if it were another situation. In one of Candace's episodes, she said she had hoped to hear from TPUSA after Charlie's murder.
I truly believed that I would be fighting for answers to what actually happened on 9/10 alongside Charlie's inner circle. I was wrong. Silence. Silence is what we were met with.
She wasn't invited back into the fold. And that's why she wants to burn the organization down. If she can't be a part of it, then no one will. I've noticed something about Candace. She doesn't respond well to being told no, or being limited, or being pushed aside. When she feels controlled, dismissed, or replaced, she doesn't quietly move on. Not inwardly, anyway. Her fallout with the Daily Wire is an example. Candace said she was discouraged from criticizing Israel when she was with the Daily Wire. After being fired and no longer bound by their rules, she didn't just criticize Israel, she went in full force. She put the knife in and twisted it over and over and over again. Her disdain for those at the Daily Wire who tried to silence her, it oozed out, without ever mentioning their names. Israel may have looked like the target, but the real target were the people who told her no. Well, her war with TPUSA has that same energy. Because when you hold on to resentment, at some point, it's going to come out. Candace's accusations against TPUSA don't line up with grief. They line up with grievance. All of the accusations she's made against TPUSA, they all come from a distorted perception. It's complex, though, because on one hand, she comes across as malicious, and on the other hand, it seems she's living in a distorted reality. But I think it's a combination of both. The distortion reminds me of the movie A Beautiful Mind. It's a movie based on a real-life mathematician, John Nash, who lived with schizophrenia. In the movie, the people that Nash interacted with were completely real to him. And the movie does a great job of making us believe, the viewer, that they were real too, until the truth is revealed. The movie illustrates the profound power of the mind in creating connections and meanings that seem true even when they aren't. Now, I'm not saying that Candace is schizophrenic. I'm simply making a point about perception. The human mind can interpret something as absolutely true when it isn't, especially when old wounds or unresolved emotions are involved. I believe Candace is attempting to finish off a battle from 2019 that she never really got to fight or win. And now with Charlie gone, there's no friendship left to protect, so she's going all in to destroy TPUSA. She sees TPUSA as evil not because it had anything to do with Charlie's murder, but because of what they did to her. Her unresolved anger and hurt from being ousted from TPUSA has distorted her thinking. TPUSA ignored Candace's accusations for as long as they could. But when she started accusing them of financial fraud and then urging donors to no longer donate, I think they had enough. They probably thought eventually she would run out of steam and stop her ambush against them. But it became clear her goal is to ruin the organization. Candace's accusations are having real-life consequences for this organization. It's not just online drama. I saw one well-known influencer announce that he was no longer supporting TPUSA, and others have followed. When I look at Candace's behavior towards Turning Point USA, I don't see a woman fighting for her murdered friend. I see a woman who's angry because she felt she was tossed aside. Back in 2019, when they ousted her, and once again when she wasn't invited back into the fold after Charlie was murdered. Candace isn't seeking justice for Charlie. She wants justice for TPUSA rejecting her. And when you look at it that way, her entire war with Turning Point USA looks different. Emotionally, Candace seems to be stuck in 2019, never getting over being pushed out of the organization. And now, after Charlie's murder, when she hoped she could have been invited back into the fold to so-called find the real killer, being passed over again has made that wound feel just as fresh. Perhaps in her mind, with her distorted thinking, destroying Turning Point USA might be the only way to settle the unfinished business she's been carrying. The organization decided years ago she wasn't the right fit, and they moved on without her in 2019, and in her mind again in 2025 when Charlie was murdered. And that's the part she can't accept. For some people, being rejected is a lifelong battle, and the only way they believe they can handle it is by destroying the one who's rejecting them.